my turn. Wow, I don't even know how to introduce myself, to be honest. So I'm just going to jump right in. All right, so I would just like to start by thanking the Cultural Heritage Innovation Program and the Puerto Rico Science, Technology, and Research Trust for the opportunity to be here today. Also, the amazing and absolutely wonderful organizers of Ars Electronica who have been amazing, really, super patient, and I am really, really grateful for that. Okay, so let's get started. Well, let's see if I can do this. Hi, I'm Shirley, and I am a nerd. I think I was around 9 or 10 years old when my dad got a computer. It might not seem like a big deal, but this was back in the 90s, and I was hooked. I wasn't even 11 years old when I already had full mastery of that PC. And I remember that one of my favorite things was to play on my Neopets page. I loved the fact that you could input some code, refresh the page, and the background had changed or a picture was now visible. I thought it was absolutely magical. Then, when I was about 12 years old, I learned how to play the Pokemon trading card game and 100% forced my entire family to learn, including, but not limited to, my mom and dad. At age 14, I was writing what would have been called nowadays fan fiction about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Please don't judge me too harshly. At 16, I had already created a full-blown fictional world with a magic system and its own mythology and politics, even a bunch of original characters and everything. And let me tell you, those characters are still alive inside my head as they were almost 20 years ago. At 18, all I wanted was a new laptop so I could play The Sims 2. At about 20 years old, I was introduced to MMOs, specifically World of Warcraft. And it was at that point that everything changed for me. Playing video games would never be the same because the type of world you find within an MMO is far different than anything that there was before. An MMO, or a massive multiplayer online game, is a video game that allows you to interact real time with people from everywhere around the world. So it really allows itself for plenty of very interesting interactions online. These type of games, particularly games like World of Warcraft, which are also RPGs or role-playing games, allow you to pick a class of a character and then essentially play whatever role that class has within the game, right? So in games like World of Warcraft, you sort of kind of build your own identity. Keep this in mind because it will be important a little bit further on in this talk. I would actually argue that, World of Warcraft, alongside some other earlier contemporary experiences, such as EverQuest, for example, or Second Life, these were the first mass adopted, quote unquote, proto-metaverses. With its own player-driven economies, manufacturing, since there were some in-game items you could only get by purchasing them from other players, and all kinds of social activities. Most importantly, though, World of Warcraft was a place where you could go on epic adventures with your friends without ever leaving your house, which was great for an introvert like me, and had almost complete control over your identity, like I mentioned a little bit before. But what does this have to do with NFTs and the metaverse and any of that jazz? Well, because of my clear interest in interactive technologies and the interwebs, it should be surprise to no one that when the Bitcoin bust started to fizz back in 2017, I was listening. However, back then, I wasn't really interested on buying crypto. I was far more interested on what the technology could do. But then Hurricane Maria hit, and I got distracted with a national emergency that essentially changed me and those around me forever. But the concept of blockchain stayed at the back of my head. And, fast forward to May 2020, when the halvening was about to happen. And I was talked by my partner into buying some Bitcoin and ETH. At first, I was very skeptic, and it took me a long time to actually understand what DeFi is and to navigate decentralized applications. But what I did know from the beginning, which was quite obvious to me, to be honest, was the realization that this technology is the foundation of our future. And what I understood even quicker is that blockchain technology, but specifically a type of smart contract called NFT, or non-fungible tokens, was a literal game changer for gaming, but specifically for MMOs. And it's fascinating to me how over the last 6 months, the conversation has shifted to a discussion of the metaverse, enabled by, among other things, digital ownership allowed by blockchain technology. And well, my talk pretty much today is I want to bring, or to show, right, to show you why I think the NFTs, but specifically digital ownership, represents the key to the metaverse and our digital future. But first, I believe I've already thrown around a few words some members of the audience may not be familiar with. So let's take a moment to define some terms. First, what is blockchain technology? In a nutshell, a blockchain is nothing more than a decentralized database. What this means is that instead of storing all saved data into one single hard drive, a blockchain stores it in multiple places. Different blockchains have different ways of accessing consensus, for example, and verifying transactions. But the important fact here is that in theory, blockchain databases are not just decentralized, they are also transparent, since anyone can verify transactions, at least those made on a public blockchain like Ethereum. They are automatic and permissionless. Anyone with a smart device and an internet connection can get cryptocurrencies without the need of a bank account or even an ID. And finally, they are trustless because everything runs automatically. You as a user don't have to trust another human being to do their job correctly. So they will just, just the protocol will execute just because it's programmed to do so. Okay, so decentralized, transparent, permissionless, and trustless. Perfect. This is important. We'll come back to it in a little bit. So don't forget about this. But, the next logical question to ask here is, what exactly is an NFT? An NFT, or a non-fungible token, is a type of crypto asset that functions like a property title or proof of ownership for digital objects. If that made no sense to you, don't worry. These concepts are all really, really new. So it takes a little bit of time. But in other words, by holding an NFT in your e-wallet, like let's say a CryptoPunk, essentially demonstrates a proof of ownership over any digital file or physical object associated with that NFT. In the case of a CryptoPunk, it would be this image right here. Each one of these images is an individual NFT. Since NFTs live on the blockchain, they can't be copied, and their origin is easily verifiable on public blockchains, like mentioned before. So the use case for NFTs has been in the shape of these collectibles, mostly. Also for gaming, which I will go into a little bit deeper, a little bit further on this talk. But what the NFT does is provide an artificial scarcity and authenticity to digital art that otherwise would be perceived as being less valuable because of its digital nature. It is worth clarifying that a characteristic of digital objects is that they can be infinitely and instantly reproduced, which reduces their value significantly. NFTs solve this issue by functioning as an authenticity certificate or a property title. This makes the item traceable and essentially enables the item to have a history. This is super important, and it's particularly important to note that it is the digital object's history embedded on the NFT that makes it unique and valuable, not the object itself. Actually, the digital file can still be reproduced infinite times, but the NFT holder has access to the only quote unquote legitimate source, thus creating artificial originals, quote unquote, right? Which is why things like this happen. The CryptoPunks, which is the largest NFT project on Ethereum right now. Yes, these are the price of each one of these. I mean, I don't want to be cynical, but each one of these JPEGs, essentially, yeah, this is the actual price. So you have things like the CryptoPunks where their intrinsic value comes from just owning this piece or this crypto asset that was essentially one of the first NFT projects to be minted on Ethereum back in 2017. So holding one of these NFTs, which there's only, I believe there's only 10,000 of them, is incredibly valuable because of its historical value, right? There is no other reason why these are valuable. And this whole NFT thing really does beg for a lot of questions. And I think that the behavior that we're seeing from the community is quite interesting. And we keep seeing things not just like the CryptoPunks, but also like this, right? Just a few months ago, a GIF, an original, quote unquote, was actually sold for almost a little bit over $500,000. This particular NFT was minted by the original artist behind this legendary GIF. And the thing about NFTs, right, is that NFTs are just such a huge game changer for digital art in general. And we are already seeing so many different artists out there minting their NFTs and creating community around their NFTs, because since NFTs are just proof of ownership, they don't just give you access to a JPEG or to an MP3, but they also give you access to communities, right? So technically, you could see having a CryptoPunk, for example, like being part of a very, very exclusive club. So yeah, so you have things like a flying cat for a little bit over $500,000, and then you have, a single NFT being sold as a high art, sort of like fine art, more like piece in an auction house like Christie's for $69 million. people thought when this happened, thought it was insane. I'm pretty sure a lot of people still do. I get it. I understand why these are valued the way they are, but I still think it's fascinating what is happening right now with NFTs and just the crypto ecosystem in general. So, and I mean, the news, I think that the population in general are just are just really, it's really hard to understand for some people why NFTs are valuable. It's like, oh my God, how can you purchase, or how can a JPEG be worth so much money? And it's not even about the JPEG. It's about having the access to the history of the digital asset. It's having that proof of where that asset comes from. So it's not so much about the picture itself, but more of its provenance, which arguably is the same reason why people buy fine art in the first place. I mean, if you wanted something like, I don't know, the Starry Night of Van Gogh, and you just wanted it for its aesthetic value, you would buy a copy and hang it on your wall. But if you want, a piece of history, you want the object that actually was painted by Van Gogh, then first, good luck with that. And second, that original piece is it's unique. There's only one. And its value, it's a lot different than just or the way that it's valued is not just because of aesthetic value, is far more complex than that. So I don't blame anyone if you still don't get it. And people are still very confused, or some people are still very confused on what NFTs actually are. So I'm going to take a step back and explain really quick what non-fungible means, something that is what it means to be non-fungible. So a fungible item are those that are interchangeable with items of the same type, and their value is derived from what they represent. So if I have two $1 bills, for example, and one of them is all crumpled up and the other one is brand new, they're both worth the same, even if one is damaged and the other one is pristine. It doesn't matter, right? Like the item itself is irrelevant. What matters is the value that is locked in the item. Fungible items are also divisible. You can divide them many, many times. Like you can, divide $1 into 4 quarters, 10 dimes, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have the non-fungible items. And non-fungible items are items that are not interchangeable with items of the same type. Their value is derived from their singularity or uniqueness in relationship to other objects, a person, a place, or a moment in history. An example, these pictures, these are 2 different cats. They're both black cats. They're both really cute and fluffy. The main difference between these 2 cats is that the one on the left is my cat. It's mine. He belongs to me. The one on the right is a stock picture. I have no idea where it's from. But therefore, my cat is irreplaceable. Doesn't matter if there's a gazillion black cats in the world. Mine is unique and is just irreplaceable, period. Collectibles are also non-fungible items. These 2 Charizards, these 2 Charizards are technically the same card. I mean, if you were going to be using them for playing, they work the exact same way. The main difference is that one is a whole lot more valuable than the other one. The one on the right, it's a first edition. It's also, if I'm not mistaken, it also has a mistake. I think it's shadowless. So it's even more valuable than just the Charizard that is first edition. So non-fungible tokens, their value is different, even though they do the same thing or they work in the same way. They can have very different value because of minor differences between them. And then you have things like these jerseys, right? It's not the same by any means to go and purchase a purple Lakers 23 jersey from Amazon, which is, according to this, is $60, versus going to eBay and looking for a jersey worn by LeBron James, signed by, and get it for 20 grand. So this it's not personification, the word I'm looking for, but this unique relationship, right, also makes an item non-fungible. So non-fungible items are items that are verifiable as authentic. Okay, so it can be a unique item in relationship to past, to personal history, like is in the case of my cat. It can be unique in relationship to other items and inherent characteristics, like the Charizard, the first edition Charizard versus the other one. They're technically identical. They do exactly the same thing when you use them for play, but their value is different because of their aesthetic, or their characteristics are a little bit different. And one is more rare or scarce than the other. And then you have items that are unique in relationship to a person. And these items are usually certified authentic by an authorized party. And that includes, items that have been worn by celebrities. Funnily enough, this would be really easy to do on the blockchain, since if, for example, if LeBron James had minted this jersey, you could just go to the blockchain and verify that he was the one who minted it. It'll be even easier. It'd be like NFTs are, I don't want to say they're impossible to falsify, but I'm pretty sure they're impossible to falsify. But the question here is then, can digital items be non-fungible? I mean, we already know they can because NFTs are, but just digital files in general, like JPEGs, MP3s, MP4s, these digital files, there is no way to distinguish a copy from the original. They can be reproduced infinite times. They're easy editable. So it's really hard, if not impossible, to determine what file is the original one. And yes, digital files that are not necessarily NFTs can sort of, kind of, maybe be non-fungible, but these are very specific type of items. Like, for example, if you ever play Pokemon, and you caught your Pokemon and you grew really attached to one of them, then that Pokemon is going to mean something to you, and you can recognize it. It has different attributes. Pokemon also have ID numbers that kind of make them unique. However, they're not really non-fungible, because you can send them to other games, but those are not exactly the same Pokemon. They're just copies. So sort of, kind of, but not really. And then when you have games like The Sims, where you can create your own avatar, these characters are different enough, or the diversifiers for these characters creations, the diversifiers from this character creation tools are so many that you could technically sort of kind of but not really have an item that is non-fungible. It can certainly be non-fungible for the player, right? So digital items may be considered non-fungible within a given game experience. But objectively, they are certainly not non-fungible. NFTs, however, can make anything digital be non-fungible. And the possibilities that this unlocks are enormous. I don't think that we can fully understand what is possible thanks to this, to the fact that now we have a way of verifying provenance and authenticity and ownership for digital items. And this is all thank you or enabled by blockchain tech. So let's see. So if you guys remember, I asked you to put a pin on this earlier. Well, we're gonna be using it now because, you know, earlier we were talking about how blockchain is decentralized, transparent, automatic, and trustless. Well, NFTs are unique, decentralized, transparent, transferable, and interoperable. I'm sorry. So they're unique. Like a physical object, any one given NFT can only be at one place at the time. The entire history of an NFT is recorded on the blockchain forever, allowing for digital objects to have a here and now. NFTs can be copied, duplicated, edited, or deleted. Once created, they will exist forever. They're decentralized and transparent because they live on the blockchain. NFTs are decentralized. Only people with access to the wallet they're in can move them. And NFTs are 100% trackable while on a public blockchain like Ethereum. They're transferable. An NFT owner can transfer it whenever and to whomever they want. NFTs can be sold and borrowed, and you can even program them you can even program NFTs so that every time that they're sold in the secondary market, you receive royalties from each one of those sales. That is huge, absolutely huge for digital artists. They're also interoperable. This means that NFTs on a given network of applications could have utility on all of them. And this is enormous for gaming. It means that if you were to purchase, you know, a weapon or a skin on a game like Fortnite, and that skin was an NFT, if you could then take that with you to other games, of course, you'll be able to do that for as long as they are compatible. So just doing a little of, you know, using a little bit of my imagination here. If you could take those items that you purchase in a game and then transfer them to another, then you're really getting your money's worth, because you're not just buying this one thing to be used in this one game. You're actually purchasing something that you can take with you from one game to the next. But right now, what are NFTs good for? As of today, September 2021, NFTs are good for collectibles, for gaming, and they have a few uses on DeFi. There is, in my opinion at least, NFTs, well, okay, so I personally can think of plenty of theoretical use cases for NFTs, from property titles to digital wills and other types of important legal documents. I don't think we have even begun to scratch the surface on the different ways in which NFTs can and will be used in the future. Undoubtedly, the last few months have shown the potential of NFTs within the digital art world. However, I do think that the biggest potential of NFTs lies in unique digital objects that can be transferred, sold, borrowed, and used all through the web. And I think that the first realm where NFTs will be essential to our lives will be in interactive experiences in video games, which takes me straight into the metaverse. So, what exactly is a metaverse? And maybe you've heard of the metaverse before, probably from this guy. Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, has discussed or mentioned before that he wants Facebook to become a metaverse company, whatever that means. Or you might have read about it recently on Forbes or on Wired. There have been talks about the metaverse have been buzzing around for the past month or a little bit more. And the metaverse is a term that I personally have heard for a long time now in the VR and AR communities. And the metaverse can be described as the 3D virtual embodiment of the internet, an expansive, persistent virtual space that we have already seen represented in movies such as Ready Player One, and that has been widely discussed by the virtual and augmented reality community for years. Like I said earlier, the advent of this virtual space has been on the works for a really long time. And we may still be years or even decades away from seeing it come to fruition. But one thing that is very clear to me with the implementation of blockchain tech, specifically the invention of smart contracts and NFTs, the discussions around the metaverse are no longer a question of if, but a matter of when. And there is no doubt in my mind that the metaverse will be ushered in by mass adoption of crypto gaming platforms, where people can connect, work, and play while being compensated justly for the time and efforts. Kathy, I want to shout out here to Kathy Hackle. I really recommend, if you're interested in the metaverse and you don't follow her at this point, you really should. She's amazing. You should absolutely look her up on Twitter. In that Forbes article, she gives this particular definition of what the metaverse is. And I'm just going to put it up here. It says collective virtual shared spaces created by the convergence of virtual enhanced physical reality and physically persistent virtual space, including the sum of all virtual worlds, augmented reality, and the internet. The word metaverse is a portmanteau of the prefix meta, which means beyond, and universe. The term is typically used to describe the concept of a future iteration of the internet, made up of persistent, shared 3D virtual spaces linked into a perceived virtual universe. How cool is that? The thing about the metaverse, though, is that, of course, it's not built yet. But I do believe very strongly that MMOs are, without a doubt, the closest thing we have to the metaverse. Maybe other applications like Second Life and VR chat can also qualify as that. But by far, MMOs are the biggest communities with actual economies that could mimic that do mimic what a metaverse could actually look like. There is this man, Matthew Ball, who I really enjoyed his essays about the metaverse. He is a venture capitalist, and he describes the metaverse as having these characteristics specifically. So the metaverse needs to be persistent, which means that even if you log off, or if you could log off from the metaverse, you would be able to come back and everything is going to be as it was. Synchronous and live, again, it pretty much means the same thing. So even though, so that, or more like it means that There's events happening all the time, even if you're not online. Be without any cap to current users, while also providing each user with an individual sense of presence. So you could have essentially all gazillion billion people in the metaverse without issue, which is absolutely not possible at this point. You have a fully functioning economy, be an experience that spans both the digital and physical worlds, offer unprecedented interoperability, and be populated by content and experiences. When I think about the metaverse, I don't know, I think it's so exciting. I find it particularly fascinating and attractive because of my history in gaming, right? And because I just, I would argue that the metaverse is already here, right? And the adoption of it will only accelerate as people get more and more familiar with things like play to earn and play to own models. What does this even mean? If you've heard of Axie Infinity is one of, it's the biggest game in crypto, precisely because it makes a ton of money for the people who actually play. Axie Infinity is a game based or inspired very much on Pokemon, where you can get these little monster creatures, train them, level them up, breed them, and use them in battle. And when you win battles, you get a currency, and you can exchange that currency for actual, like, quote unquote, real life money. There are other games on blockchain that have a play to earn model or a play to own model, but Axie Infinity is by far the most successful one to date. But I hope that you guys can understand the potential of this and how huge this is. And I know it because, because I've played enough World of Warcraft to know that all the time that I spent playing, and I played World of Warcraft for almost 10 years, would have been better invested elsewhere, because I have exactly zero anythings to show for it. As a matter of fact, I quit playing World of Warcraft when I started realizing that everything I had done in game was not mine, it was borrowed. And sure, we can argue that the value I got from the game back then is quantifiable in other ways, such as entertainment, friends made, etc., etc. However, as you go from being a 20-year-old college student with some time to spare to a 30-year-old with all kinds of responsibilities, at some point you start to realize that, sure, you may have, I don't know, a level 100 rogue with the most awesome PvP gear, which has all the, the kids, all the 18-year-olds looking up to you like, oh my God, that's like so cool. Or perhaps you become so good in endgame with your paladin, with your pally, that you become the main tank for the biggest guild on the server, and you have like this really, you become really popular in the server. But then there comes a day when it is clear to you as a player that the ever expanding World of Warcraft, in this case, is an island surrounded by infinite virtual space. All the good you do in this virtual world, this World of Warcraft, has little to no impact in the real world. And whatever satisfaction you get from living a life inside a virtual world becomes a trap, essentially, and gets incredibly harmful. I mean, try to explain to people, like normal people, that you came, like to your boss, for example, that you came in late today because the noob healer kept pulling aggro and wiping the entire party. So the raid took 2 hours longer than anticipated. And you were tanking the raid, so it's not like you could leave. Yeah, see what I mean? That's not something that you'll be part of of casual conversation. However, I really do believe that digital ownership changes everything. And NFTs are a stellar way to bridge the virtual space between virtual worlds and the real world, and to incentivize players to essentially play a game indefinitely. And this is why NFTs and digital ownership are a huge deal for gaming and digital creators as a whole. Being able to actually own what you invest your time in creating is huge for adult gamers, which in turn is huge for the industry itself, since according, I believe it's Statista, around 38% of gamers in the US are between the ages of 18 and 34 years old. And that number dwindles to 26% in the 34 to 54-year-old bracket. So just imagine if all 12 million people who were playing World of Warcraft back in 2010, when the game was at its peak of subscribers, suddenly were given the opportunity to jump back into the game they loved, but this time with full digital ownership over everything they create in the game. Digital ownership over their characters, the items they created, digital ownership of whatever they got in exchange for their time. Yeah, I think it's a very powerful thing. And I also think that we probably have full crypto adoption in just a few months. I mean, digital ownership would allow gamers to have a actual career inside the games, or rather inside the metaverse. I am looking forward to the day when everyone will have their own virtual place, functioning as a digital extension of real life. In this virtual reality, we will be able to interact with our NFTs directly, whether they are GIFs, 2D art, 3D characters, or documents. The possibilities of the metaverse and our future lives on the web will have NFTs at its center. And to be completely honest, I just can't wait. So I want to thank you so much for your attention. I hope that you learned something from my presentation. I am incredibly thankful to all of you for being here. I once again to the PR Science Technology Research Trust and the Cultural Heritage Innovation Program. There will be no Q&A after this. So if you have any questions or you would like to contact me, please feel free to send me an email or to contact me through Twitter or LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you have a wonderful, fantastic rest of your day. And I'll see you all tomorrow for more webinars. Please stay tuned for our webinar schedule for tomorrow. Thank you so much. Have a great day y gracias por estar.